Hi guys, welcome to the very first video of AiyoReviews. So our reviews are going to be like a podcast where we each give our opinions about a film or TV series. We've chosen Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 for our first review. It's quite an interesting movie. It released on the 22nd of June, just a few days ago. The story revolves around the Falcone family and the Holiday Killer. The Holiday Killer is a person who murders people on holidays. Um, it was quite interesting to see how he used the same murder weapon. Throughout the movie, we see the same weapon being used, so that was quite interesting. He plays a main role in this movie, so he's a big part of this whole story when it comes to the mystery behind who he actually is. So at the start of the film, the movie creators definitely want us to assume that the killer is this person or is it that person, so it's not sure. So the mystery is dragged on throughout the movie. So the murderer targets the Falcone family, but not the Falcone boss itself, that is Carmine Falcone. He's also called the Roman. So he is also called the godfather of the Falcone family. He sort of heads the whole family and all the matters relating to the family. Um, the whole Falcone family is considered to be one of the ruthless families that operate in Gotham. And unlike the Godfather we saw in the movie The Godfather, this Godfather is a bit different. So even though he says that he likes to support the family and that family means everything to him, we see that he doesn't support Alberto. Unlike in the films, the Godfather actually supports his family. So that is something interesting we saw. And another big character in this film is Harvey Dent. He is one of the main characters that has been in the DC universe throughout. My friend will elaborate on him.
Yeah, regarding Harvey Dent, I think he's an important part of the story, and I think you find him in the beginning of this film as the district attorney, and he's sort of looking to bring down the Falcone crime family. Um, at the beginning of the film, you see a setback in his case in terms of he's found someone to turn against the crime family and sort of bring evidence against them, but that person ends up getting killed by the holiday killer. So I think in the beginning of the film, you sort of see that setback, and you see him sort of have this mission to bring down the Falcone family, but that gets derailed by this whole holiday killer storyline. In and amongst all that, you have his personal relationship with Gilda and his shortcomings in that relationship in terms of his inability to devote time to give her affection. And I think all of it's really building up to that reveal of him becoming Two Face. At the beginning of the film, it's sort of teased that he is going to see this change, but the film doesn't follow through on it. Obviously, that's going to be left for the second part. But yeah, you see an interesting sort of character. You see him playing with the coin, and you see him sort of going into that transition of becoming Two Face. But all in all, he's a tragic character. And I think in the beginning of the film itself, he says, I have to operate in the light, whereas Batman has to, in comparison, operate in the dark. I think I think you'd have a perspective about how Batman is in this film, right?
Yes, I mean, throughout the past DC films, we see that Batman is quite prosperous with finding who his villain is, and he's pretty sure he's certain about who his villain actually is. But in this particular film, we don't see that. Even at the end of the film, we didn't see him actually nailing the villain. And funnily enough, he plays a detective role in this film. One that he normally doesn't play. He's more of the he goes behind the crime, he finds the villain and brings them to justice. But in this particular film, he acts like a detective, and I mean Gordon probably has a huge impact on that. So that is something really interesting we saw about Batman in this particular movie. And one other character who joins in here and there is Catwoman. And we see that both Batman and Catwoman have their own moments. Um, in that scene where Catwoman was climbing up the clock tower and she doesn't give her hand to Batman and she falls down, Batman is shows concern about her falling, and later on in the film we see the other way around as well, because Catwoman
Yeah,
always comes
I
to
think
help. Yeah.
I think that's it's interesting that you point out the relationship because I think similar to how he did Batman as well struggles to have a personal relationship in this film, and you can sort of see him and Harvey Dent both they're consumed in their work. But Catwoman, on the other hand, is you can see you don't understand. You can understand like in a way why she's doing, but you also can't understand why she's helping Batman because at the end of the day, her character is sort of portrayed as this rogue, as this burglar, but she ends up helping Batman, and I think the film sort of implies that really that it comes out of her caring for him and wanting to have a relationship with him. But at the end of the film, you sort of see them on that ship, and you sort of see that their relationship kind of breaks down at the end.
Quite a similar
But
role to
it
the
just
Catwoman that was portrayed in the Dark Knight trilogy, don't you think?
yeah. I think at the end of the day, the sort of outcome of all of it is that both of these people are leading different lives, in during the day and during the night. And I think, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting contrast between Harvey and Batman and Catwoman sort of access that. But amongst all of that, there are a lot of other, side characters in this film that were introduced to.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course. We see Batman and Gordon heading towards Arkham Asylum, where we see Calendar Man, an interesting new character where he seems to know what's going on in this whole movie because he's aware of this holiday killer, and he knows that Batman and Gordon actually come to meet him for that purpose to get information about the holiday killer. So that was interesting. There was Solomon Grundy, an interesting character who helps Batman in one instance in the film, and we see Batman also helping him um, back, and he shows affection as well because we see Batman giving him some food to Solomon Grundy. Joker also plays quite a role in this film. Role wise, I don't see a difference in Joker because it's the same Joker that, the mischief that revolves around him. Um, Gordon also plays an important role in this film. From start when we see him um, bring his character to the movie. One interesting thing was when he tries to hand over his gun to Harvey Dent. What do you think about that?
yeah. I think the film is sort of implying that Gordon also sees that Harvey that this the Falcone family is a big threat to Harvey. So even though normally it's his gun, and as a police officer you're supposed to protect your gun and look after it, and that's yours, it's your possession. But his willingness to hand it over to Harvey shows that whatever said and done at the end of the day, because it's Gotham City, it's a lawless city. Um, at the end of the day, the main objective is to protect yourself and your family, and I think that's sort of that's a different side of Gordon that we see. It's a different side of both Harvey Dent and Gordon compared to some of the Dark Knight films that we saw. Their characters sort of I wouldn't say that they are black and white, but you see a very compared to those films, you see characters willing to do a few more things which are maybe a bit more considered not safe or not the good option per se. So you see a contrast between them in the Dark Knight trilogy and in this film. You sort of understand Gotham is in a state of corruption and it's run by all these criminals. So they're also willing to go that extra mile to sort of protect themselves and their family, which is in a kind of a difference to what you see in certain other depictions of these characters, especially
Absolutely.
Harvey Dent. Yeah, Harvey Dent, especially, you see him sort of going down that path. But Gordon, as a character, was always known to be good, is also willing to every now and then cross that line. But you also see that he's a guy who's willing to stick by the rules. When Batman is willing to hurt the suspect in that case, you sort of see him kind of pulling away and saying, "No, we don't do that over here." So overall, I think the film does a great job at introducing these characters, giving these characters a role, and sort of giving the audience a sense of mystery to focus on. So yeah, overall, I think in terms of our first review here at AiyoReviews, we give this film we'll rate it at a 7. Um, and yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up things in terms of what we can say about this film. We're looking forward to part two, and hopefully, if anything interesting comes between now and the release of part two, we will definitely do a review on that. But overall, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed our review.